Good morning. It's loud. Loud bangs. Mm, So you're welcome to ask questions if you're here. How I'm feeling. How I'm feeling in Taiwan is a question that I thought a little bit about. And what came to my mind was two answers or two aspects. And the first is, well, this is how I'm feeling here in Taiwan. And hey, Khalil. And the other thought I had is that I don't too much like the idea of I. So there's different experiences that are happening. But someone or something to possess that experience doesn't seem realistic for me. And it's kind of a grace realism. It's like a realism of grace. So if there wasn't this relief or freedom from thoughts, if there wasn't like an impermanence to those experiences, that would be really heavy situation. That would be a heavy life. But because of the impermanence of those experiences, it doesn't seem realistic for there to be something that owns them. So I can't really say that I'm having any particular experience in Taiwan, but that things are happening, and mostly nothing is happening. And the only other way I could say it is that, mostly I don't know. Not easy to describe it or put it into a box. How I'm doing, how I'm feeling. Maybe I'm feeling the importance of boxlessness. not having a box to put myself in, and really appreciating that, appreciating to practice with that right now. Can anybody read this? I'm going to order and eat some food. I'm going to go get some, put this order in. To get this one. Yeah. Yeah. And there's also something interesting here in terms of turtles. I wouldn't describe myself as sad, but really there's so much, and this is what I really value in my life. There's so much capacity for change. You know, sometimes the difference between like being in severe depression and being a depressed, sad, or anxious person is literally just going for a walk. Oi, shishi, amitofo. At least for me. And anyway, I think that's a principle that we can exploit, we can make use of. You know, that walking principle, that release principle, that no self truth, that you may very well seem to be depressed, anxious, or you know, you're everything in your life is spiraling, you're completely going, you know, crazy. And then you just go for a walk and there's a full release, a complete release. And then you know, you start to focus and be realistic about your own mind and the experience of your own mind and how you relate to that direct experience of your mind now with kindness, with openness, with flexibility, and using the power of nature instead of just using the power of uh, planning, of complicated thinking about your relationship with other people, your relationship with the world, your philosophy, your plans. And you cut all of these spirits of unnecessary thinking, and you just focus to be kind. You focus to be mindful, and you focus to see clearly what reality is here and now, the way that it is here and now. Because the way that it is here and now is that's the way that it is. There is much, much, much more absence of thought, the experience of no thought, than there is the experience of thinking. So you may not be able to control your mind or the environment in the way that you want to, but you can recognize this absence of thought. You can recognize this absence of a narrative, of some people call it spirits or complications in the mind, in reality, to refresh and restart. It's kind of like our ego is a computer and we're constantly online. We're constantly connected to the environment and other people and all these spaces that we don't necessarily understand. And so as we're wandering around with our ego, we get viruses, we get download too many files, we get slow, or we get problems, we get issues within ourselves. So instead of trying, sometimes, and I think a lot of the time, instead of trying to rewrite the code of our computer, it just needs a restart. And then if a restart doesn't work, it maybe needs a complete system reset. And that system reset is completely accessible if you can be open to the Dhamma, if you can be open to the teaching on non-self, if you can be open to the teaching on everything is dukkha. So it's not that you have to deal with this, but you want that, so you're suffering and you're worried and life's difficult. But that is also dukkha. This is dukkha, that is dukkha. This is unsatisfactory, that is unsatisfactory. Everything is unsatisfactory. So that puts you in a position not to try to control and stress and have tension about your life, but to realize that the only freedom from that suffering is to stop grasping, stop attaching, stop holding on. And, usually go along with that in terms of take yourself for a walk, listen to a Dhamma talk, stop trying to control, stop trying to be in charge. Because, yes, the spiritual path is this, you start to follow 5 precepts, you start to listen to Dhamma talks, you start to practice generosity seriously, you're very careful and mindful about your mental, physical, and verbal actions. And slowly but surely, you start to transform your mind to be more wholesome, to be more happy, to be more peaceful, etc. Yes, that's very important, and I recommend that. We should all endeavor to try and practice and try to live that way if we can, to the degree that we can. But along the way, we're going to make mistakes. And really, we don't want to just trudge along on some path. We want to experience freedom. So these marks of reality that the Buddha talks about, no self, impermanence, the unsatisfactoriness of all phenomena, they're kind of like exploits to break out of the game of our suffering. And it doesn't matter if we're completely enlightened, if we're a monk, if we're super virtuous, if we're a master meditator, or if we're just a master baiter. That nature, the way that things are, is already. So that is the restart button principle. That is the system reset principle. That is the capacity and ability for anyone and everyone to tap into this sense of freedom that keeps them from harming themselves or harming other people, right? So you can really have that opening of light in the mind where you say, I'm suffering, I'm going through difficulty, my life is not ideal, and yet there is this freedom here. And this freedom here is wonderful. And this freedom here is peaceful. And this freedom here is accessible and spontaneous and natural. So this is the natural law, the natural truth. It's like trying to make a cloud follow your religion. It's like trying to convert a cloud to be a Christian or to be a Buddhist. I don't know if you're going to be successful in that or not, but it doesn't quite make sense. we're all we all have our own individual experience, our own karma that we're responsible for. And if you can't see through this feeling or this sense of separation, sometimes it's a physical feeling, sometimes it's a mental feeling. If you can't see through that appearance of separation, you can never really express your individual karma or your individual experience in a way that's not based on fear, not based on stress, not based on contraction. So we widen out our mind, our heart, our experience to be inclusive of everything. It doesn't make sense to be angry at a cloud. It doesn't make sense to be greedy about the cloud. It doesn't make sense to have complicated thinking about the cloud, any kind of complicated thinking. And yet the cloud is right there. The cloud is undeniable. So we shift the perspective away from this sense of separation and instead open up to an experience where there aren't separate things. There aren't separate people. There aren't separate thoughts. It's a raw, direct, water-like, crystal-like unfolding of the mind. And then we get to have a bite of our delicious Taiwan food. You know, who doesn't want that? I'm not interested in holding on to any names. So we tend to think, don't we? Maybe we should stop. But thinking, at least for me, tends to lead towards these objects of mind or these objects of the world that are, I imagine, to be pleasurable. I imagine to be pleasant. So there's a kind of rumination about seeking after these objects or avoiding objects or avoiding experiences that are already there so that I can be happy or fulfilled or whatever. But without this sense of space, this sense of clarity, of no thoughts, of no thinking, of no personal identity, just this openness together with everything, the pleasurable wouldn't be worth anything. So instead of primarily thinking about ways to get what we want materially or mentally, we can start to notice the absence of thought. And we can breathe with, and see with, and eat with that absence of thought. The trick or the secret is that that absence of thought, or that which allows pleasure to be pleasurable and that which allows pain to be painful, has never left and has never arrived. So that there is just this. So this is moving away from the wrong view and moving into or towards the right view. The view of not someone. The view of not something. The view of not somewhere. The direct experience. The clarity. The brilliance of not labeling things. Or, in a practical way, I can say the non-reliance on the labeling of things. So whether that labeling is taking place or not relying on that. So if we are constantly bound, tangled, enchained, fixated on thoughts about things, it's very, very, very difficult to focus on or be clearly aware of what is already here. And the teaching is about your ability to be free from thoughts. If you're already free from thoughts, then you don't need a teaching about that. And the freedom from thoughts is not an I that is free from thoughts, it's a freedom from I. It is a freedom from the wrong view of separation. So the problem that we spiritual seekers get into is we're giving special importance to certain things. So for example, there may be an element of the mind which is scary, shocking, confusing, convoluted, not something we understand. And so that leads us to a grasping, that leads us to an attachment, that leads us to giving a special importance onto this mental phenomena or this mental experience. Kind of like maybe we feel ourselves locked in a dream or locked in a movie. The trash man plays the song of the ice cream salesperson. But the reality of it is that phenomena or that trauma or that confusing experience in the mind is just as special or meaningful as getting a rash on your arm. You don't understand the rash on your arm. You don't understand how you got it. You don't understand the subtle processes of intermingling atoms happening now that leads to an itch. And yet, you have that capacity, you have that ability to not scratch that itch. And in the same way, we develop this capacity not to grasp onto the mind and try to control it and try to understand it, but to detach from that, to detach from mental phenomena. And this is radical. But it's also radical to understand or to contemplate that this body that you identify with is just a temporary happening, a coming together of elements. It came together, it seems to be together now, and it will dissolve. And this is where and why in our meditation practice there's no need to ruminate on particular experiences. It's just awareness. And the method or the way of practicing that just awareness is to take something simple, like the physical sensations of breathing at the tip of the nose, and to allow that dissolution to take place, allow that ungraspability to become clear. You can't grasp onto the sensations coming in through as the breath comes in through the nose and as the breath goes out. And yet those sensations are there. So the body and mind are unexplainable. Reality is not explainable. People are not explainable. Things are not explainable. But with mindfulness and detachment, we can use things skillfully. And the greatest skill is to be able to use something without attaching to it. To use the body without attachment to the body. To use the mind without attachment to the mind. And what is using the body and mind? Nothing. Or your true nature. Or the mind of the Buddha. And this is where a lot of people, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking out of my rear end, but I think this is where a lot of spiritualists get caught up, get confused, get worked up into weird complicated thoughts. Because this foray into the territory of reality as it is, it doesn't subscribe to any of the norms and notions that our ego or the thought system of ourselves and the world has been built on. Reality has nothing to do with that. So it's like the saying, you are the universe. This body and mind is the dewdrop of the entire universe. To say it is interesting, but to experience that is it's kind of surreal from the point of view of the ego. So as much as we can decouple, detach from the ego, we'll be much more able to be in a space of egolessness without unnecessary complications. And we can use all of that energy that we have for our meditation practice, or for coming home to the body and mind of ordinary absolute truth. Yes. This a toilet? Okay, thank you. Goodbye.